A very good afternoon to you all. This is the Ambassador. With me, your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau. Now, our first story is going to come from Nigeria as rescue workers are attempting to find students buried under the rubble after a two-day school building collapsed during the morning classes on Friday in the north-central Nigeria, killing at least 22 students. A total of 154 students were initially trapped in the rubble of the Saints Academic College in the Plateau State in Busa Buji community. Nonetheless, 132 were later rescued and are being treated for their injuries. Let's get the full report.
The disaster which struck early Friday morning at Busa Buji community in north-central Nigeria has claimed 22 lives. Authorities reported that the collapse occurred shortly after students, many of them aged 15 or younger, had arrived for their classes. The state governor has attributed the collapse to the school's weak structure and its location near a riverbank, calling on other schools facing similar issues to shut down and ensure the safety of their students.
School stands shut down, and it's a call to duty. Not only are we going to investigate the reasons behind the collapse of that building, we're going to extend our searchlight. We're going to beam our searchlight on all such schools and make sure that they do not endanger anybody's lives in the future.
Nigeria's National Emergency Management Agency has deployed a team of rescue workers, health professionals, and security forces to assist in the search for survivors. Building collapses have become all too common in Nigeria, with poor enforcement of safety regulations and maintenance issues often cited as factors. The tragic incident at the Saints Academic College serves as a stark reminder of the urgent need for improved building safety standards in the country.
We wish Nigeria a quick recovery from this catastrophe. Now moving on to Somalia, a powerful car bomb explosion struck a cafe in central Mogadishu, Somalia capital, on Sunday evening as football fans gathered to watch the Euro 2024 final. According to the police, at least 5 people were killed and another 20 injured in the blast, through the authorities warning that the casualty toll could rise further as rescue efforts are still continuing. Let's get the whole ordeal.
A suicide bomber struck a cafe in central Mogadishu, Somalia on Sunday evening as football fans gathered to watch the Euro 2024 final. This resulted in the killing of at least 5 people and injuring 20 more in an attack that caused significant damage to nearby buildings. The bombing, which occurred near the presidential palace compound, bore the hallmarks of the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab militant group, which has waged a long-running insurgency against Somalia's government and frequently targets civilians in the capital. This latest violence comes after a relative lull in attacks and follows a failed jailbreak attempt by Al-Shabaab inmates just a day earlier. Despite the Somali government's pledging all-out war against the militants, backed by African Union and US support, Al-Shabaab maintains a strong presence and has seized territory this year. This has prompted concerns about Somalia's ability to secure the country as African Union peacekeeping troops are set to withdraw.
Louisa Hanoun of the Algerian Workers' Party has withdrawn her candidacy from the upcoming presidential elections, citing unfair conditions. This announcement coming just 2 days after President Abdelmadjid Tebboune declared his intention to seek re-election. Louisa's decision to withdraw her candidacy was highlighted by the perceived imbalance in the electoral process, with many opponents of Tebboune feeling that the system is rigged against them. Hanoun is a veteran of the Algerian opposition, having previously run for president in 2004, 2009, and 2014. Our next report tells us the story.
Hanoun expressed her frustration with what she termed a skewed legal framework that, in her view, aims to obstruct opposition candidates from challenging President Tebboune in the upcoming elections scheduled for September 7th. The 2019 arrest of Hanoun during the mass protest that led to the resignation of former President Abdelaziz Bouteflika highlighted her role as a prominent dissident. Accused of plotting against the state and the army, she faced serious charges before being released in February 2020. Nevertheless, in January 2021, she was acquitted of all accusations, further cementing her status as a symbol of opposition in the country. In power since 2019, Tebboune is the favorite in the September 7 election. The 78-year-old leader, who previously served as Prime Minister under Bouteflika, has faced criticism for his handling of anti-government protests organized by the Hirak movement. Hanun's withdrawal from the race adds a new dimension to the unfolding electoral dynamics. With Tebboune now facing reduced competition, the spotlight remains on how the opposition and electorate will respond to the latest developments in the lead-up to the September polls.
And Rwanda is set to hold presidential and parliamentary elections today, that is Monday 15th of July, through the votes, widely expected to extend the long rule of incumbent President Paul Kagame and his Rwanda Patriotic Front Party Kagame, who has been in Rwanda since the de facto leader for 3 decades, is facing only 2 challengers, that is Frank Habineza and the Democratic Green Party, and the independent candidate Philippe Mpayimana. However, Kagame's most prominent critics have been barred from running by the Rwandan courts. Here is the full report.
The opposition led by Frank Habineza of the Democratic Green Party of Rwanda struggled to gain traction during the campaign period. Habineza's rally on the last day of campaigning drew a modest crowd of just 100 supporters. Philippe Mpayimana, another independent candidate, faced similar challenges in rallying support among the electorate. Criticism of Kagame's leadership is known to be met with severe consequences in Rwanda, where political dissent is rare and tightly controlled. The 66-year-old Kagame, who has been in power for nearly 3 decades, is effectively running unopposed in Monday's election, solidifying his position as the dominant political figure in the East African nation. As Rwanda is casting its ballots, observers and international commentators continue to scrutinize the electoral process, questioning the extent of political multiplicity and opposition representation in the country's democratic framework. The results of Monday's election are expected to reflect Kagame's enduring popularity among Rwandans, yet the election also highlights ongoing discussions about political freedoms and the diversity of voices in Rwanda's political scene.
The Democratic Republic of Congo stated it will not require the withdrawal of the UN peacekeepers from its North Kivu province due to the presence of the Rwandan forces and the Rwandan-backed M23 rebels. Foreign Minister Teresa Kwayimana Wagner specified that the security situation in the eastern Congo was not conducive for the troop pull-out. A recent UN report indicated that 3,000 to 4,000 Rwandan troops were also fighting the Congolese army and overseeing the rebel operations. The next report tells the whole story.
Democratic Republic of Congo has stated that it will not require the withdrawal of UN peacekeepers from its North Kivu province due to the continued presence of Rwandan forces and Rwanda-backed M23 rebels in the region. Foreign Minister Teresa Kwayimana Wagner has indicated that the situation in eastern Congo is not suitable for a troop pullout at this time. A recent UN report revealed that thousands of Rwandan troops are actively fighting the Congolese army and supporting rebel operations. Despite a humanitarian ceasefire announced by the US, the Congolese army has accused the M23 rebels of violating the agreement. President Felix had previously demanded the withdrawal of peacekeepers, accusing them of failing to confront the rebels, which led to deadly demonstrations targeting UN bases.
And that international news brings us to our very first break. We have more lined up for you shortly after the break. Topics you can't afford to miss. Stay tuned with us.
How can I start the missionary school? And God was giving me the heart to start the missionary school. In 1972, my most beautiful daughter was born. I didn't raise my daughter, but God raised my daughter, so she was raised so wonderfully to work for the gospel. And so 1976, the missionary school was born. And I feel so moved as the church is moving for the gospel. The pastor lives for this.
And you're going to learn about modeling industry in Kenya. It's not only about beauty, it's beauty with brain.
I participated for Miss Udhiro Girls, that's 2018, and Fortunately, I was crowned the queen.
And maybe there's something that actually triggered you to join the modeling industry. You can just tell us.
What I encourage my fellow models is that when that time comes, just say something.
How is the rate of joining the agencies of the modeling?
The trainings we go each and every Sunday, and in between the trainings, we have gym sessions, we have swimming classes, we have photography. And yeah, my parents fully support me. If I'm going for any pageant, like the one I competed for, Miss National Youth Caucus Kenya, that was held in Nakuru early this year, they were there.
How do you maintain your health and wellness, physical? How do you maintain as a model?
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. You are still watching The Ambassador, GBS Global, and we are glad to have you join us today. Moving on to the matters of the United States. Former United States President Donald Trump was wounded in an assassination attempt during a campaign rally in Butler County, Pennsylvania on Saturday. The attack occurred moments after Trump took to the stage when a gunman opened a fire from a nearby rooftop, striking Trump in the right ear with a bullet. And secret agents quickly shielded Trump and neutralized the shooter, who was identified as a 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks of Pennsylvania. One rally attendee was killed in the shooting, and two others were critically injured before the shooter was killed by the secret snipers. Here's a full report.
Recent assassination attempt targeted Trump at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Thomas Matthew Crooks opened fire but was killed by the Secret Service. Trump was wounded but is still recovering. The investigations into these assassination attempts and attacks have revealed a range of motives, from political ideology to mental illness. While some perpetrators were imprisoned, others were confined to mental institutions. The safety and security of U.S. political leaders remain a critical concern.
I'm speaking and projecting myself in an orderly fashion. I'm here, I'm not threatening anybody. I'm standing on my own 2 feet. I am not weaponized, I am not carrying a weapon, I'm not looking to put harm. So if he said fight, I'm right with him. Fight, because if we don't fight, we're gonna get knocked down.
Donald Trump was the target of an apparent assassination attempt during a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday. Moments after Trump took the stage, a gunman opened fire from a nearby rooftop, striking Trump into the right ear with a bullet. Secret Service agents quickly shielded Trump and neutralized the shooter, who was identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks of Pennsylvania.
I want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
One rally attendee was killed in shooting, and two others were critically injured before the shooter was killed by secret snipers.
Thanks for coming, folks. I've been thoroughly briefed by all the agencies in the federal government as to the situation, based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick.
Despite recent deadly Israel strikes in Gaza that targeted Hamas military leader Mohammed Deif, a senior Hamas official, stated on Sunday that the group had not withdrawn from ongoing ceasefire talks with Israel. Izzat el-Rishik, a member of the Hamas political office, accused Israel of attempting to derail a ceasefire efforts by Arab mediators and the United States, thus escalating more the attacks in the Gaza Strip. Here's a full report.
Saturday's strike in the Khan Yunis area of Gaza, in which at least 90 Palestinians were killed, according to local health authorities, has put the ceasefire talk in doubt. Two Egyptian security sources at ceasefire talk in Doha and Cairo stated on Saturday that the negotiation has been halted after 3 days of intense talks. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was expected to convene his cross-circle of ministers later on Sunday to discuss the talks. Israel military stated on Sunday that the strike on Saturday targeted De'iv Kid Rafa Salama, commander of Hamas Khan Younis brigade, but there was no confirmation about the fate of De'iv. The strike in Khan Younis was as a result of surgical intelligence, the head of the Shin Bet Domestic Security Service stated in a video released by the service from Rafah. He said 25 Hamas operatives who took part in deadly October 7 attack in southern Israel that triggered the war had been killed in the past week. On Saturday, a senior Hamas official denied that De'iv had been killed, and the group stated Israel claimed were just justifying the attack. It added that 141 Palestinians were killed by the Israel military strike across the Gaza Strip in the past day, the biggest one-day death toll in many weeks. Gaza Health Ministry does not distinguish between combatants and non-combatants, but officials say most of the death throughout the war has been civilians.
Via flooding, mudslide left cars and homes submerged in the heavy rainfall since the 20th that triggered a widespread flooding in the landslides in the southern eastern of Kyrgyzstan. In the Osh region, mud flows damaged a major road and forced the evacuation of hundreds of families. The extreme weather had destroyed homes and backed roads down by the lines and disrupted water supplies, with at least one fatality being reported, plus a girl who drowned in the neighborhood Uzbekistan that is the coast border of the impacts. Rescue and relief efforts are ongoing, but the situation remains dire as more heavy rain is being forecasted, with residents advised to avoid travel in the affected areas and follow the instructions from all local authorities. Now let us check more on the United States matters, as the U.S. President Joe Biden is facing pressure from some major Democratic donors ahead of the elections in November. For example, Abigail Disney, Barry Diller, and Dianne von Furstenberg are among the big names withholding funds till Biden's step aside. But will the United States president do so? Or can he be forced to retire? Or what are the reasons behind this call for the president, that is President Joe Biden, to step down? First, let us look at this video together.
I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
That is President Joe Biden, the President of the United States of America, making daily headlines for his gaffes. The latest came as President recently held an important press conference. Biden's team had built a big boy presser where all concerns about the president's health should have been laid to rest. It was planned by the perfect setting during the NATO summit, when all key allies of the United States would be present and journalists from around the world would cover it. It was indeed a good opportunity, but Biden blew it again. He spoke for around an hour, convening a lot of the ground from foreign policy to economics to politics and even to the elections, but none of these things made news. What stood out was the president's blunders and the reaction of the world leaders around him. Listen in.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President.
I'm better.
Their faces say it all, as if it were trapped in a nightmare hoping for it to end. Biden's performance triggered a flood of bad press. Newspapers around the world have been talking about the gaffes. Look at some of the headlines. Toe-curling moment. Biden introduces Zelensky as Putin, and Biden vows to complete the job. Despite the stumbles, this came from the British newspapers, and this not only from Italy, a flurry of gaffes, it is said, and this was another one embarrassing moment in NATO summit, and that was also a Dutch newspaper. In Spain and Germany too, Biden's blunders were splashed across the papers. Unfortunately, the president, it does not need to end here. Look at what the coverages and some of the unfolding sagas were talking about.
Is it well that on this occasion too, the president stumbled into some clamorous slip-ups?
When he spoke about his deputy Kamala Harris, he referred to her as a Vice President Trump. Passing the word to Zelensky, he made a mistake and instead said that he was passing the word to Putin. Well, in general, this just shows what state he is in at the moment.
This is a full-blown PR nightmare. Biden may insist that he's the best man for the job, but no one seems to believe him anymore. Least of all his party colleagues and all the Democrats. They want him out, and if the president refuses to go himself, a mutiny is now a real possibility. And why is this? Because now more Democrats are coming out in public. They are asking Joe to step aside. In the last 24 hours, 2 more Democrats have this demand, and now many of them are saying that this publicly, at least 17 of them. 17 Democrats have openly called for Joe Biden to end his presidential campaign. These are the members of the United States Congress in the lower house, better known as the House of Representatives. And a report say Democrats could join this club in the days ahead. But so far, Biden remains defiant. Listen in.
In your opening answer, you referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
As seen reporters tried to grill the president, they asked him direct and pointed questions of his health and his daily routine, and whether he can carry on the 4 more years. And this is how President Joe Biden responded to their questions. Listen in.
In your opening answer, you referred to Vice President.
Instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurologist. I'm tested every single day about my neurological capacity to do decisions I make every day. And every single day I'm surrounded by good docs. If they think there's a problem, I promise you, or even if they don't think it's a problem, they think I should have a neurological exam again,
President Joe Biden tried to mount a strong defense, but it did not make the situation even better. And forget about the presidential bid for a moment. Look at his current official status. He is the sitting president of the United States of America, having to explain he is getting enough sleep, having to share when he goes to bed and when he wakes up, what kind of neurological exams he takes, or what should he take, what his medical report says. He is being grilled all about this, and the question that is mounting, would you vote for such a candidate? And while his age has been a point of concern for a while, his health became the biggest election issue after the debate. It was a disaster for the president. It completely derailed his campaign and crushed his popularity. He is trying very hard to recover it, but honestly, it's becoming too painful to watch, not just for the Democrats, but for the American allies too. Take a look at this video that was taken from the NATO summit. That was Italy Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. What was going out was the Secretary General John Stoltenberg and the Finnish President Alexander Stubb. Reports say that they were waiting for President Biden and the president was running late. Meloni seemed a bit annoyed, rolling her eyes and pretending to be looking at the watch, while some others were more forgiving. Listen in.
Of course, we can all have a slip of the tongue. I don't hide my preference. Certainly, as a president and a progressive, I prefer Biden as president of the United States. Slips of tongue happen, and if you always monitor everyone, you will find enough of them. Of course, we can all have a slip of the tongue. I don't hide my preference. Certainly, as a president and a progressive, I prefer Biden as president of the United States. Slips of tongue happen, and if you...
Well, this was a bit comforting, but this vote of assurance is not helping Joe Biden. The attacks continue both from his political and geopolitical rivals. Donald Trump, of course, was quick to attack. Great job, Joe Biden, he said on social media platform of Truth Social. And the Russians are not holding it back either. Listen in. Biden is now a source of international embarrassment both for his party and his country. His re-election campaign is clearly imploding, but he is too stubborn to step aside. Either way, Democrat victory now looks at a tough with or without Joe Biden as a candidate. Look for more. We'll continue to bring you more of the unfolding saga of President Joe Biden to step down. And that international news brings us to the end of our Ambassador GBS Global. It's been a pleasure having you on board, joining us to the end. Here at the Ambassador, we continue to bring you the latest updates and the global developments as you keep it locked with us. Have been your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Ambassador tomorrow, same time, same place at 1 p.m. I wish you all the most beautiful and a wonderful afternoon. See you all tomorrow.